Hello and welcome to Men in Progress, the podcast of United Methodist Men of Trietsch here in Flower Mound, Texas. This is part of the Life Plus God podcast series from Trietsch Memorial United Methodist Church. Every Tuesday, we drop a new podcast, including ours, every fourth week. This is our podcast for August 2023, and we certainly appreciate you listening to this edition of Men in Progress. I'm your host, Dave Casey, and in this episode, we're searching for calm in a world of chaos. For a lot of us, every day feels like a tornado. Sometimes there's clarity about the path, and some days, not. Sometimes there's just destruction and despair. Often our families can feel trapped in the whirlwind, leaving us to desperately search for answers. How do I deal with my out-of-control teenager, or is my child showing signs of autism or ADHD? Am I disciplining my child the right way? How do I parent my grandchild or stepchild? It can be truly overwhelming. But for people of faith, there's also help and hope and love. Joining me to talk about that and a whole lot more are three of my brothers from Trietsch, Grant Hahn, Joseph Moore, and David Taylor. Guys, welcome to Men in Progress.
Hey, good to be here.
Great.
Great
Thank you.
Great to see all you guys. This ought to be a real fun topic for us. So chaos, are you for it or against it, David Taylor?
I'm not for it, but I don't mind it near as much as I used to.
Well, there's a great answer. We'll do that. So I'm going to start at the source with this topic. So when you're feeling stuck in chaos, where do you turn to find calm? So I'll ask Joseph. I suspect I know, but where do you find calm when things are really chaotic?
When I think of the word chaos, what comes to mind immediately is Jesus feeding the 5,000, and the fact that he said, the first thing he said after they got the meal was, sit in groups of 50 or 100. So out of chaos, potentially feeding 5,000 people, tremendous chaos, he created order. So I guess my first source is, if it's chaos, the first thing I start asking myself is, well, is the Lord involved in this? You know, am I bringing him into this?
Right.
And is that the primary source of the chaos?
Yep. Glenn, how about you?
Well, I like Joseph said, I was just thinking about how can you bring the chaos into order? Because, David said it too. Chaos is can be okay as long as you can bring it into order at some point. And then Joseph said, having the Lord there with you and guiding you through that.
Yeah, and sometimes somebody's in charge, but it's not us.
Correct.
So
Correct.
we have to seek that out.
The short answer, Dave, is chaos in moderation. Okay, that's for me. That's real important. It has to be. I can't live a life that's chaos
every day.
every
Yeah,
day.
and there are
That's
people
a
that
little
feed
much.
on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those.
I had to learn that lesson the hard way. I had to stop creating the chaos. I used to live I lived in a chaotic way.
Yeah.
Now I do not. I much prefer order and routine and structure.
Yes.
However, chaos is going to happen. Right?
Sure.
So I'm starting to learn to be okay in the chaos. Let the chaos swirl around me, so to speak. Try to bring some order if I can, but know that ultimately, like Joseph said, God's in control.
Yep.
And many times I will find just a calming spirit will come over me, and I can just sit in the chaos.
Yes, indeed.
Yep. That's and I guess the caveat to that whole question is, what role does faith play for you in finding calm in the midst of chaos? And I think Joseph explained it a little bit on his take on it. But David, is that where your faith kicks in?
It is. It is great amount of faith sometimes. But just the faith that even in this chaos, even if this doesn't end up the way I think it should, right? Or if something gets lost or broken in the chaos, God is still with me. God is going to be with me. And God will be with me after the chaos passes.
Exactly.
And so I find peace in that.
Yeah. So, Grant, I'm going to, they've got easy questions. All the hard ones are coming to you.
Thank you so much.
Just wanted to let you know that. So.
All right. I'll take it.
So at the top in my intro, we mentioned a few scenarios that questions, there can be some heavy questions that come up and create chaos that really have some scary answers. Could be something like, does my kid have ADHD? Does my kid have autism? My body doesn't feel right. There's something wrong here that I need to get looked at. What do you do when you're faced with those kind of, I'd say, deeper questions? These are not like work, this is going to work itself out things. These are things that could be very serious.
Yeah, I think with questions like that, I like to turn to the faith community, love the life groups.
Yeah.
We just finished up our life group, and, that was a great way every week if we had something come up like that I'm a community type person. I love talking to people.
Yeah.
And with an 11, 9, and 7-year-old, every morning I do start off with a prayer and
chaos.
Yeah, and chaos, and hope it goes well. But I with difficult things, I found that through my life that I've turned to people, especially in faith, and talk with them. And see, how can I find that answer? And maybe if not the answer, maybe find ways to get to that answer.
Your path. Yeah. I think that, and there's a difference between like what I'd call a standard accountability group or a standard small group and a faith-based one.
Right.
I think there's a distinct difference. And there's, I think, a level of comfort that you get knowing at least the people, if they believe as you do, they have the same underpinnings that you do. I think that's helpful in looking at that.
And with the life group, this was our third one, and it's amazing how each different group, while there could be different circumstances, everyone kind of came together based, through faith, and you got those answers you needed and wanted at that time in your life. And I feel like God put those people in my life at that time for when I needed those answers.
And Joseph, I know you've been through some tough and scary things.
Yes, yes, I have. And it's those groups that really help me through those. I have a couple of groups that I meet with weekly, and for many, many years I've met with them. And I would strongly encourage any man or woman, for that matter, that doesn't have a small group. And I think what you said, David, is spot on. There should be a faith element to the group. I think that gives you a basis to build upon. But having that group has been just almost life-saving for me. Now, I think it's really important to share. I wasn't looking for a group that they were going to be the president of my fan club. I wasn't looking for that. I wanted someone that was going to love me, but love me in truth. Joseph?
Call you out when needed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mistake.
Yeah.
And actually, this spring, one of the brothers called me out, and the others quickly jumped on board. But I am so thankful they did, because it would have taken me years and possibly never have been able to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
And it was just a matter of my having written something to set someone right, that the brother said to me, "Do you feel better now that you've written that letter?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." "Well, good. Tear the letter up, and bury this issue."
Yes.
I am so thankful, because I was ready to. I was going to overnight it. It was. It was so important to me.
Wow.
So the groups have been just.
That's
important.
Tremendous.
But again, it has to be a group that's honest with you. That's not afraid to say.
No pulling punches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's important. Joseph pointed out the group, and I'm like Joseph. I have a couple of different groups I meet with. Over the years, I've begun to accept that they do genuinely love me, even when they say things that I don't want to hear.
Yeah.
But most importantly, when I am in a chaotic situation, when the wheels have fallen off the cart, I know they're going to be there, and I know I can pour my heart out to them, and they're going to listen, and they're going to love me anyway, whether I say it correctly or like I would in mixed company, and they will love me through. They become my anchor, in the storm.
That's a good description.
And I got to say too, my wife is excellent when there's chaos. She's so grounded and so solid. And if it's something going on with me personally, I know I can go to her. If it's something going on that affects both of us, I know we're in this together.
Yeah, that's a good feeling.
Yeah.
So we're back to Grant. Another hard question, of course. So if God is really he's kind of the ultimate source of calm, right? I don't think we can argue with that. And we have a relationship with him. Why is it so hard for us to feel calm, even knowing that?
Yeah, I definitely think that, like Joseph was talking about, when sometimes you don't want to hear it, and David said you don't want to hear it. And so I found myself that I know if I have difficult situations, I kind of turn away sometimes, knowing that God might have the answer that I need, or the people he put in my life will have the answer. And so I'll turn away because I don't want to hear the answer that is needed to be heard. And so I think that, then there's a lot of times when it's like, man, I wish I had done that a while back, because I could have found the calm much quicker.
Yeah, somehow I think if we ask God, we're going to get the answer that's correct, maybe not the one that we want to hear at that moment. And so that's why we keep asking. we avoid action.
Let me phrase it slightly differently.
What if I did this? So there's a similar question, and David, I'll ask you this. It's the most prevalent message in the New Testament, and it's said more than anything else, is be not afraid. And yet we find ourselves scared and feel fearful all the time. So why do you think that is?
Well, I don't know about all of us. I know I like to know what's going on and to be comfortable where I'm at. When God calls me into a situation, go downtown and talk to these folks that live on the street, or go sit with this person whose loved one just passed away, or meet with this person who's lost their family due to drugs or alcohol. It's uncomfortable for me. It's very uncomfortable. And it feels like chaos because you don't know how people are going to be handling, these kind of situations. And so I kind of chuckled when you said God is the source of calm. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes God is the source of chaos and just puts us in those chaotic situations, I think, to strengthen us. To build some confidence in ourselves that we can handle that. The Bible talks a lot about building persevering, and building character and all that.
But also maybe to provide calm to those people in that situation through you.
Sometimes,
and it doesn't mean God's helping them, but he's using you as the instrument, which sometimes it's not that comfortable being the instrument.
It's not. And it's hard to watch people suffer. Or to be in a room with someone who is suffering.
Yes.
But it just seems to be part of our call to do that and to be with those people and to bring, not that there's anything special about me, but to bring some kind of a presence of God's love into that situation so that they have something physical they can hold a hand, hear a voice. It's very difficult to be that calming influence in that chaotic situation.
Sure. So Grant, I got an easy one for you now.
Oh yes,
this will be
finally
my last name.
So when you're in that whirlwind or that chaos, I guess. What are some spiritual practices that help you when you feel that need for calm?
Definitely music.
Great.
I love,
Mm-hmm.
Christian music. I go to the 9:30 service because I love, the upbeat. It feels good. Not
Praise
that-
and worship.
Yeah, not that anything's wrong with the hymnals, but I just love the upbeat, feeling good. It really energizes me, but that also does calm me.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like we're all there together. Especially I always think of the song, the 99 left, and that always comforts me when to find me.
Yeah.
And I always
Yeah.
put myself in that situation, like that he's out there and he'll come find me
Yeah.
when I need that calm.
Yeah, that's boy, and and I think I'm in the music ministry, just singing in the choir, but I think the people that are in the music ministry sometimes underestimate what the impact is and how important it is to
Very
people.
powerful.
Particularly if it's a great song that we've practiced a lot, so we know it, but the first time someone else hears it, it's another experience for them,
And I do find myself singing them a lot, and that helps me remember when the kids are going crazy or when something's happening.
kind of
that,
gives you a center.
Just start singing.
The center there.
Yeah.
Joseph, do you have different spiritual
I
practices?
I tend to remove myself.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of easy because I'm single, but even being single, sometimes I have to physically remove myself from my home because there are things that will pull me.
Yeah.
Particularly the thing I didn't want to do will tend to pull me.
Yeah.
But to physically remove myself is really, really important. David and I had a common experience of a retreat. We're not talking the walk to Emmaus.
No.
It's actually run by Catholics.
Yeah, Jesuits.
Jesuits.
Mhm.
It's actually in Corinth, and it's actually known across the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a
Wow.
wonderful place.
It's a wonderful place. That has been very, very moving for me. It's Thursday night through noon on Sunday, and it's in complete silence.
The whole 3 days.
Total silence. And they have a great library that you can read authors that you've wanted to. You can just go and take a look. There's also someone on staff that's available if you want to talk about something. So that physically removing myself, for 3 days or for half a day or whatever is always helpful for me. And to also write what I'm thinking at that time is also very, very helpful. To reflect upon a year ago, this is what I was going through. And Lord, here's where I am now. And thank you for the people or the books or the whatever that you put, in my path, that it's very different. The way I view that, I won't say problem or issue, is very different. And I think there has been a maturing of me as a Christian as a result of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that a very short version of that is meditation, just taking time to meditate. Yeah. And I know that we've done that a couple in classes we've been in together, David, that even to meditate for a minute or two, or just be silent for a minute or two. And you can tell with some people it's superbly, centering, and it's really powerful. For other people, they're like, I can't be quiet for 2 minutes. I mean,
I have a combination of all those practices. I like music. Mine is typically country music or country gospel.
Oh, Lord.
Or Western. Could be country or Western.
I like both kinds of music.
Yeah, they're
country and
both the
Western.
normal music. Yeah.
But I also, I'm into contemplative prayer. I learned that when I was going through spiritual direction training. Certainly reading scripture. And now that I am a little more familiar with scripture, I have some favorites. Some of the Psalms, that bring me peace and comfort. But the thing Joseph talked about out at Montserrat Retreat Center is absolutely a wonderful experience, and it was scary for me when I first went, just the idea of not talking for 3 days. So from that experience, I also pull away sometimes, and we'll just go sit somewhere by myself for just a few hours, just the solitude and the observing nature, not at 106 degrees, but on a pretty day or early in the morning. I tend to rise early. Early in the morning, I can sit outside and just observe the sun come up in nature, and everything's got an order and a rhythm to it and takes care of itself. And there's something very calming for me in that.
Definitely.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about the idea of the small group as being really a reinforcement as well. Whether it's a life group, the Walk to Emmaus reunion group would be one as well. What role does prayer play in yours, Grant? Is that a regular thing? Does that help with the chaos?
Yeah, I've learned, through life group as well, praying, and this was a big thing with Daniel, just thanking the Lord, doing things throughout the day, like Joseph was saying, writing things down, reflecting. I think that is such a big thing in my life now that I just continue to reflect and pray. And a lot of times it's not out loud, but it's, calm, thinking, praying. And then there's times where it's out loud, where I know it's needed out loud, not just quiet prayer. So it does play a big part, and it really does help with the calming.
Yeah. It's interesting. In my younger days, I worked for volunteered for about, 10 or 12 years as an EMT in a local fire department. And part of our training, going through EMT training, is that you are the calming influence. Because when you encounter people, as if you're working on an ambulance or on a fire service, and you encounter people that are at their worst or not at their best. Let's put it that way. That they're injured, a loved one is injured, or sick, or there's a catastrophe, or a car wreck or fire or something like that. So people are not at their best, and you have to be the calming influence. And prayer played a big part of that. I mean, going into every situation, you pray on your way in, and then you kind of on autopilot while you're there, and then once the dust is cleared or whatever has happened. Then you resume prayer, and there have been several times where we prayed as a group after an event. So I think that's certainly strengthened, my experience with that.
I'd like to echo the other thing Joseph said about writing. I would encourage people to write through dealing with the chaos and their feelings and stuff. There's something therapeutic about putting pen to paper.
Yeah, even if it's for no one else to see but you.
Oh, don't send it to anybody. No.
Yeah.
His last step of tearing it up is really a good point. But, when the most recent chaotic thing I went through was the loss of my mom back in February.
Sure.
And I wrote a lot to process that because a lot of people don't just go to sleep and not wake up.
Yeah.
There's a dying process, and it's not pleasant to go through. And that helped me a lot, just to write some things down and put it into some kind of form and think about it, and then it's just for me.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd really encourage people to practice that.
So Joseph, what advice would you have for people that really struggle to find a calming source of strength or something that brings them through?
I somehow knew you had asked this question.
Well, Grant was tied up. I couldn't get that.
The one thing that immediately came to mind to me is for people to realize the impact that their chaos can have on other people.
Oh, yeah.
And what the reason that came to mind was I have had the blessing of teaching two of Grant's children in Sunday school, and multiple
all of mine and grandkids too,
grandkids as well. But the one thing I think that parents and perhaps grandparents need to remember is a child is observing your chaos. And I can tell you, sometimes they don't just, when mom and dad go to church or wherever they're going, the child is still, when they come to my classroom, they're still struggling with the chaos.
Sure.
And it can take sometimes 10 to 15 minutes before I get them. And
well, there's no chaos like packing up 3 kids and getting them to church on a Sunday morning.
Yes. And I'm not criticizing at all,
I know what you're
but
saying.
just asking to be cognizant of that. And it really hit home this year in January when a little boy, I just love him. I taught him for a couple of years, and now I see him at the beginning of Faith Voyage. But his dad dropped him off, and apparently it had been a very, very difficult moment. And as his dad walked out of the room, he yelled, "I hate you."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Dad just kept walking.
Yeah.
I fell apart.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I pulled him to the side and I said, "You really didn't mean that." I said, "I know. I've observed you with your dad for 3 years now." I said, "I know you don't mean that."
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't.
No.
But he knew it'd get his dad's attention.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't, but it got mine.
Yeah.
But again, it was chaos that happened somehow in that household
Yeah.
that he wasn't able to process. So I just, want parents to realize that, just realize
They can sense.
they can.
Yeah.
Yes, and they can.
Even
get
if it's
over
overt, I mean, people yelling, or if it's the silent treatment,
Yes.
kids
Yes.
can sense
Yes, they
that.
can.
You know,
Yeah.
definitely do that. Have you any other advice, Grant, that you have as far as dealing with chaos? You probably have the most chaos of anyone at this table.
I was just reflecting on what Joseph said. There's times where I've gone to bed at night and said, I did not handle that situation
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
the way I should have handled it. And, we were talking about prayer and how that, helped me. And in the morning I would go, but still, I could still sense that, the chaos had an effect. And it's not going to just be I'm sorry, thanks. You know, it really has to be a changing mindset. And so that's, I think if advice, if you find yourself to continually falling in that, to find out, reach out for help, find those people that can help you.
Yeah.
And I had a weekly, group and a just one-on-one with some of my friends. And then one friend in particular that, we're both dads of 3 young kids, and we got together and would talk about how we can be, a faithful to each other, but leaders in our family.
Yeah.
And show them how important it is, to have that prayer, to have God with you in your life, and that he will calm, in those times of chaos.
And it's interesting because I've seen perspective where what I think is chaos is just another family's normal operation. I mean, that's just the way they go.
Correct. That's a great
And they're not
point.
feeling any chaos. I mean,
Right.
this is,
That's a great point.
and I'm going, wow, that doesn't happen in our house. We raised 2 boys, and boys are generally, they were fairly quiet. I mean, they had their moments, but they were fine, but it was a whole different story when they got old enough and girls started coming over. Girls, first of all, the volume level's like 140 decibels with girls. I don't know what it is, but it's deafening for me. And I remember coming home one time and I stepped in the door and they were upstairs in the media room doing something. And I could hear this really high pitched sound, I told Doris, there's girls here, isn't there? And it was like, yeah, how did you know? She's oblivious.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of suggestions that have worked well for me, and the first one is to get away from television, the news cycle, all the
Just the
stuff in
external
politics,
forces.
all that stuff, social media. Turn it off, and walk away, because I'm telling you, it is designed to keep you in a state of chaos and upset. And I've noticed to myself, when something really bad, a terrible tragedy like a shooting or a building falls, or something really bad where they're going to be there for hours and hours and hours, I cannot sit there and watch that stuff.
No.
I get enough to know, okay, I'm up to date. That was terrible. Walk away from it. Watch an old Andy Griffith if you got to watch TV. But I mean, just turn it off, because I don't believe it's healthy for us. And with the 24-hour news cycle, it is all the time.
Yes, it is.
And it will eat you up.
Yes, it will. Yeah.
Yep, that's a tough one. That is a tough one.
David, I can attest to that. One of the things I always do as a part of Lent is I give up entertainment and I consider TV and radio and going to plays and movies to be entertainment. I give it up.
That sounds hard.
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, I get to the point in January, I started looking forward to it. And this year, I actually decided to do a double.
Wow.
A double. And so I went 13 weeks, actually.
Oh, wow.
Without it. Now, it was kind of difficult when people said someone died, famous died.
Yeah.
They did,
Oh,
but other than that, it was just fine.
Yeah.
And actually it gave me more time to spend in God's Word and, writing to friends or calling friends on the phone and getting caught up. But I agree wholeheartedly, David. If we just turn the world off, parts of the world off, at certain times, I think that can help minimize the chaos.
Yeah, my father was a very calm guy, and he very, very man of few words. Let's put it that way. And it was interesting because one of the comments he made to me is, there's things that you can do and have an effect on. There are many things that you can do absolutely nothing, about.
Yeah.
So don't use a lot of brain cycles worrying about that or fretting about it or anything that you cannot change. It's on a global scale. I mean, we lived with the Cold War and all that stuff. I mean, that's not your problem. That's somebody else's problem. And so I really, and that's why when I look at what's happened now with social media and the phones and just immediate communication second by second, and I've watched people just be so distracted with texts coming in and alerts and all this stuff, and I said, man, that has got to weigh on your brain. I mean, I just can't believe you can operate, with that. And then I watched I actually read the book first, but a great story called News of the World that came out about a year and a half ago.
Oh, with Tom Hanks?
With Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
And it was this, he was a former military officer, and he actually earned his way by traveling through the West. This is in the I guess right after the Civil War. But he would go from town to town. He'd buy a newspaper, like the last civilized place he was at, like, say, St. Louis. Then he'd go out on the frontier, and he would charge people for him to sit and read the newspaper because they're so starved for news. They don't get news, and they can't read, many of them. So he can read, and it may be 6 months old news, but he's reading the news, and they're enthralled, And to me, that's about the level of social media that I need, I think, is something like that. So... Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This conversation was great, and I know it's been helpful for me, and I'm sure it's helpful for our listeners as well. So thanks again. I do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
This was great.
Awesome.
So there you have it, episode 20 of Men in Progress. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and that you'll join us again in September when our topic will be love handles. Want to know what that's all about? Tune in and learn more. Thanks again to Grant Hahn, Joseph Moore, and David Taylor for joining me and sharing their wisdom with our listeners. Thanks for listening to Men in Progress from Trietsch Memorial UMC in Flower Mound, Texas. I'm Dave Casey. We'll see you next time.
This episode of the Men in Progress podcast is sponsored by Trietsch Memorial United Methodist Church, where our mission is to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. If you're in or near Flower Mound, Texas on any Sunday morning, we would love to welcome you to any of the Trietsch services. Or you can follow our services anytime on our Facebook page or at tmumc.org.